Hey, guys, and welcome back to our 10th episode of The Fact That. It is a very special episode because it's the 10th episode, and as long awaited and promised for a long time at this point, we have our first guest with us. So, welcome my co hosts, Emma, Victoria, and now our special guest, Oliver M. James. Welcome, guys.
Yeah.
Hello.
So
Oh my
let's
God.
jump
Welcome
right
to the
into
fact
the
that.
action.
Welcome to the
Welcome,
fact
yes,
that our
Ollie,
first
welcome. Oh my God.
guest.
So, Oliver, do introduce yourself.
All right, so my name is Oliver M. James. I'm a clinical hypnotist. That might seem like a strange thing to say, but I help people change the way that they experience different situations. It might be exam stress, it might be learning a new language, and it might be giving up an annoying habit like smoking or vaping or something like that. So I help people make really important changes in their life through the help of clinical hypnosis. Yes. And I'm really passionate about hypnosis, and I believe it's probably one of the most underused and misunderstood tools of helping people that are out there. And hopefully I'll be able to give you guys and girls today a little bit of a preview of what you can do, and a bit more information about what hypnosis can do and how it can help you in your daily life.
Yeah.
Right. We are very interested and very stoked about it, actually. I've been waiting for a long time for this collaboration to happen.
Same.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so excited. I'm already hypnotized. Like,
she's like, I've been hypnotized.
Yeah.
So to give you a little side note on that one, we had a previous session with my friend Oliver here, and he has given us an insight into what it feels like to be hypnotized, and has just basically played some, can we say, mind tricks with us?
Yeah, a mind trick is a good start. Yeah.
Right. So, Oliver, where would you, for our listeners, as most of us are medical students, where would you see that hypnosis could be most useful or most used in the field that we are in? Okay.
So, what we actually have at the moment is a growing body of research for pain management and pain control, both acute pain and chronic pain. And there's more and more studies which are being released showing the benefits of using a hypnosis intervention. Now, hypnosis has been used for quite a while. There's a concept called hypnobirthing, for example, which can help pregnant mothers give birth with less stress, less pain. This has been around for a good number of decades now. But increasingly, there's research being done in terms of pain management. And even from the early 18th, 19th century, they were doing operations using hypnosis before they had chemical anesthesia to do it. But hypnosis has suffered a little bit with the kind of cultural image that many people have as it being some kind of mind control or some kind of manipulation of the mind, when in reality it's really about taking control. It's really about putting you back in the driving seat of your experience. So if, for example, you're experiencing a lot of pain, now obviously that pain is a signal, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to suffer with that pain. There are things you can do to begin to reduce and to alleviate that pain. So that's one area. Another area is in terms of anxiety. Many people undergo some really serious operations, and just the operation itself is maybe one thing, but the whole build-up to that operation, the whole preparation, and then the recovery after that can also be very, very stressful, very, 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 very traumatic. And so hypnosis can be helpful there in helping patients gain more positive outcomes in their life, really. And what's nice about it is it's a very quick, it's a very easy tool that people can learn to self-apply. Often it helps to be guided first, and then people can learn the skills themselves so they can really have some self-efficacy over their experience, which is great, which makes them more independent. So that's another area. And the other area, which is pretty interesting, is more for the point of view of students who are experiencing perhaps a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, maybe sleep issues. It's also really helpful there as well. You can do certain things in hypnosis which allow you to really alleviate a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. You can see yourself performing at your best, and that can be really, really powerful in helping you get through an exam, reach a qualification, or certain conversations, job interviews, all these kinds of things. Hypnosis can be used for. So it's a really interesting one. I actually also specialize in helping people learn foreign languages with the help of hypnosis. So not learning in your sleep, which is what a lot of people might first imagine, but actually looking at some of the anxiety issues that occur when you're learning a language. You know, if you imagine you've got to the age of 21 and all of a sudden you've got to learn a new language and you have the vocabulary of a 2-year-old, you know, or maybe even less than that.
Yeah,
and that can be a really stressful situation to be in, and you can feel as if you're stupid, and some people will just give up because they can't take that, because they don't see themselves ever becoming good at it, ever becoming fluent at it, and just that alone, that foundation isn't there. So hypnosis can be helpful there as well.
So you would say, in simple terms put, it's rather it's not really a tool to help you learn a language, but more to overcome the barriers to actually express yourself in the language. Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. It's to help bring down the barriers of learning.
And would you also say that the statement that hypnosis can be used in order to learn, to speed up, say, the learning process, or is it simply to overcome barriers?
Well, if you are less stressed, and if you have more belief in your ability, and you have the motivation to practice, then obviously you're going to learn quicker. You're going to be practicing more, so your language learning will accelerate. However, it's not just simply about you're going to listen to some hypnosis and all of a sudden you're going to be speaking fluent Chinese. It still takes time. It still takes a lot of effort. You're still going to make a ton of mistakes. But rather than berating yourself for those mistakes, you'll see them in a different way. You'll see them as, well, okay, didn't get that right, but now I've learned something, and now I've remembered that, and I can use that to then go forwards, you know. So yes, it can, but I wouldn't like to say it's suddenly a miracle cure or anything like that to just start speaking fluently. But many people do have sort of mental blocks around performance, around giving talks, giving presentations, and that's where hypnosis really shines.
Which would be rather helpful, considering, you know, what we've been through with learning Latvian while starting medical school. That was quite the hustle, honestly.
Yeah, it really was. But I feel like, is it true that hypnosis can help you in like your focus practice? Because I feel like that's, or kind of what I got off of your explanation was like, you feel like you're not in the driver's seat, but in turn it puts you in the driver's seat because you're able to maybe turn off external things, or internal, like you kind of shut down your nervous system in order to focus maybe on one thing, where in this world right now we focus on 1 billion things at a time. And what I just said was the first thing, because we just did our little hypnosis, was my thoughts were turned off, which was so cool. That was so powerful. Like no random, oh God, I gotta eat like in an hour, or I have to do this. It was just turned off, and I was completely focused, and my body just was working.
Yeah, that
was insane.
That's really, you've really hit the nail on the head. It's really about reducing that mental chatter, all those little distractions, so you can really focus. So again, focus is also an area which it can help you with. You know, if you need to do a piece of work or study, then you could take yourself into self-hypnosis for just a few minutes, and then you can have that focus. You've got it. Or you can say to yourself, every time that I sit in that chair and I open up Word or Excel or whatever, you're going to get that focus. You're going to feel that focus, and you can start to build it in a bit like an association, a positive association. You can have, you know, you may have heard of the famous experiment with Ivan Pavlov with the dogs, and it's the same thing. You can create that kind of conditioning using hypnosis as well.
That's cool. I need that.
It just quite honestly reminds me of this negative cognition that I have experienced in the past weeks. Is when I open, like I usually study pharmacology with the numbers, because I make this table with like mechanism of action and everything. And usually I got very tired studying it. So the other day I was working on a work project for the university, and I simply opened up numbers. It had nothing to do with pharmacology, but I instantly noticed how like my tiredness level like rose to a peak. I was just like, this is not good.
He's like, I'm negatively hypnotized.
Well, I don't think it's really hypnotized, but it's like
it's a conditioning.
Conditioning, exactly. Yeah. Well,
no, but it's
numbers
super
is up for me now.
Yeah.
Right. So, and another field that you are very interested in, as I was told, is relaxation techniques and stress reduction techniques that you have a lot to share with us with.
Yes. So, there's sometimes a bit of confusion with hypnosis and relaxation. Many people believe that hypnosis is that when you should be hypnotized, you have to be really relaxed, and it's not really true. Really, what you need is focus and to be able to engage your imagination. And if you think about the experience which you guys have had, you weren't slumped in a chair or sitting with a blanket on and reclined. You were standing up with your eyes open, experiencing your hand seemingly float into the air by itself.
Yeah.
So hypnosis isn't necessarily relaxation, but often we can suggest relaxation, and you know, as you guys know, you know, anything you can do to reduce stress and anxiety in the body is great. You're going to reduce inflammation, you're going to promote better sleep, you're going to, you know, help people, you know, reduce the urge to perhaps binge eat, and all these kinds of negative things which, you know, ultimately affect people's health in the long term. So there's a couple of things, you know. Anxiety is a big one in today's world. People are more and more aware of anxiety, and there is more and more awareness of mental health, which is a good thing, but also has a slightly negative side as well, because it leads people to think, at least through the Googling of symptoms, saying, well, maybe I have anxiety, maybe I have a anxiety disorder, and without even going to see anybody, without going to see a professional, they diagnose themselves as having anxiety, and that can be kind of problematic, because they to the untrained eye, they are using that as if it were like you've got a cut on your knee, or you've got a brain tumor. You have this, whereas it's slightly different for things like anxiety and stress. Is that really you are? I like to say, people look at me funny when I say this. They say, "Well, you are doing anxiety," and that's not to blame the person, but it's to say, listen, this is generated on the inside. This is generated as a result of your perception. So let's see if we can change that perception. And you change perceptions all the time, right? If you go to a restaurant you think you really like, but one day they give you really bad service, and you go back again, they give you really bad service, it changes your perception, and you no longer go back to it. You never do it again.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in terms of working with things like anxiety, it's really about changing people's perceptions around what seem to be the triggers, and to show them it's not really quite like that. You know, a nice example is there's a very old story of a man walking through a desert, and he's walking through the desert. It's a hot day, sun beating down, and he sees what seems to be a snake in the sand, something long and black and curled up. And as he sees it, he starts to panic. He starts to feel the stress, starts to feel his heart beat faster, palpitations, sweating, catastrophic thinking. Oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Uh-oh, you know, all of this. But as he gets closer, he sees something. He realizes that it's not a snake. It's just a piece of rope and left behind. And what do you think happens to his experience in that moment, the moment that he realizes the rope? All of a sudden, all the symptoms go, or disappears. Now, of course, in front of a nasty snake, you might feel like that. But often, we as humans can respond to situations as if there were truly a snake there, as if there were truly a real danger, when in reality it's a bit of a misunderstanding. It's been encoded as a danger, but in reality what we're seeing is a kind of like a bit of an illusion. And so when people start to see that, it starts to change their own experience of what they are doing. And that begin, you know, because once you really see it for what it is, it becomes very difficult to re-experience it. And you really see the kind of illusory nature of thought.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, there's lots of things, and yeah, I teach things like breathing techniques and things like that as well, you know. But hypnosis can also be very effective in helping people really see something differently, see a situation differently. And when you see it differently, the whole thing just collapses. And then it's one thing knowing it, right? It's not one thing me telling you that, but it's another thing to actually have an experience of that, to actually have the embodied realization that that experience that was causing you trouble isn't quite what it seems, to really feel that and to be able to notice the same experience and not have the same reaction, and to sort of look at what nothing, you know.
But would you say that it has helped with like maybe on a tangent, no, like repetitive thought patterns for people that have, or it can possibly help if they've had, for instance, OCDs or like social anxiety symptoms, and like constant repetitive.
Yeah, OCD is really anxiety on steroids. So it can help there. And again, the problem of the habitual nature of it isn't really the true issue. It's the emotion behind it, and that's where hypnosis comes into its own. Is really communicating with those unconscious processes. You know, some people call it the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. These things which have perhaps been running for a long, long time in the background and without people's true awareness. Hypnosis can be really effective there too. Yeah.
And I feel like we all know. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like we all know the feeling of like the fear of going outside of your comfort zone, and as soon as you do it, you realize it wasn't that bad. I feel like I'm definitely a person like that was always super scared that I would miss my. So I would check like in the night, and then at some point I was like, dude, you need to learn to trust yourself, and like just put away your phone and go to sleep. And I've never missed an alarm, and I luckily don't do that anymore. But my question would be, how did you get into this, Oliver? Like, how did you struggle with these things and kind of got into it, or did you just always naturally were kind of drawn? Because I feel like it's such a niche thing that you do.
Yeah.
It's so impressive, but how do you get there?
How do you get there? It's a good question. Well, I didn't have a particularly traumatic childhood. It'd be a good story, wouldn't it, if I said that? But no, in fact, when I was about, I didn't get into it in the first stage for therapeutic purposes at all. I sort of, it was a curiosity. There was a TV program on I'm going to show my age here, in the 90s, in the UK, and they featured like a head teacher, school head teacher, who was also an evil hypnotist, if you like. I saw that. I thought, well, that can't be real. That's just in the show. And then years and years later, as a teenager, I was reading something, and it had like a little chapter on hypnosis, and it grabbed my attention. Well, is that a thing? And I read it. And thought, seems like it could be a thing. And I started to do a bit of research, and then I was talking to a friend, and I said, "Oh, maybe you should get hypnotized." He was saying, "I can't concentrate on my homework. Maybe you should get hypnotized." And he said, "Oh, can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah."
Oh, really?
I just went for it, and I just followed a very basic procedure, and to my surprise, it worked. It worked.
That's fantastic.
And,
That's really cool.
He nearly fell off his chair at the time. I was about 15, 16. I don't really know what I was doing, but I just tried it, and it worked. I was like, wow. I thought, surely it can't be this easy. And so that opened up like a huge can of rabbit hole, a can of worms, I guess, because I was thinking, wow, that's amazing. You know, I just talked to him, and he just sort of seemed to fall asleep. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And so then I started really playing with it. I mean, I then studied languages at university, and I remember I decided to abuse the university library system and begin to not only get books from the course I was doing, but I'd venture into a different floor.
Love that.
And I'd start to go through the psychology section, and I started to hunt out books with anything to do with hypnosis on it. I used to take them out and try and understand what was going on. And that's it. It didn't make much sense, but it was very heavy, very old, antiquated and academic. But it stayed with me. It never went away. And then I decided, a good couple of years ago, say, you know what, I really enjoy this. And I've kind of got a lot of practice through doing stuff with different friends, just sort of fun things, sticking people to tables and chairs and people forget their name, all these kinds of things you kind of see at a stage.
I was just thinking this like Hogwarts vibe. Oh,
yeah, it's kind of like, because magic isn't real, right? But it's the closest thing, it's the closest thing you can get to magic sometimes, because you can create seemingly magical experiences, even though they're not.
Yes.
But it can be very quickly understood like that, interpreted like that. And that's why people can go to a stage show, for example, and have a wild experience, of doing all kinds of crazy stuff, because that belief is there that this could happen, and it's done in a certain way in which that does happen very, very quickly, very, very easily. So yeah, I didn't get into it in the initial stages through any kind of therapeutic work, and then it slowly started to dawn on me that there was something a bit bigger behind this than just making people's arms float. In that you could actually change people, help people change their life, and change lifelong habits. Because if you can have somebody imagine that they are, a cowboy for 2 minutes, and they completely believe they're a cowboy, well, what else can you do? What else can you do? Because if that person was suddenly really, really shy, and now they're walking about like a cowboy or dancing around like a ballerina, what does that say about the shyness? So yeah, it really went from there, and I just practiced and practiced and practiced, got certified in it, and now I run a practice here in Brussels, seeing
Mm-hmm.
people all kinds of issues. Yeah, it's one of those things where you never really intend to become a hypnotist or a hypnotherapist.
Mhm.
It's kind of just something that you kind of fall into. You know, I know many other colleagues in the profession, perhaps they had a particular difficulties and it was hypnosis which helped them. That wasn't the case for me. Although it has helped me in different ways, helped confidence, it's helped with speaking, you know, later on. But in the initial stages, I didn't get into it for those reasons. Yeah.
Cool.
That's so
But
cool.
since self-hypnosis can do so many things for me, and you have gotten me into it, and I use it, I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but at least on a weekly basis. I got to say that.
Yeah.
What would you say? Do you use it yourself? Do you make use of your, say, abilities, of your knowledge about it in your daily life, basically?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I usually practice self-hypnosis, if not daily, if not every 2 days, I should say. Sometimes I use it to help fall asleep. Sometimes I use it to help with goal setting. Sometimes it's just used for a quick recharge, a quick energy boost.
Yes.
You know? So
that tool is amazing.
It's really quite versatile. You can do quite a lot of things with it. You know, some people would use it to help control eating habits. Others would be for exercise motivation. Other people might use it to just reduce stress, or maybe help them before a sports game or something like that. You know, it's a very wide and broad tool.
But is it like a specific technique that you use for all of them, or is it different depending on the outcome?
There's a set of techniques which you can use. I mean, I have different ways which I can take myself into that experience. There are, you know, I have about 3 or 4 which I would use myself, but there are many more that you could learn. It's really about finding the one for you. It doesn't really matter what that is, and there are different things which you can do which when you go there, but the basics of it are pretty much consistent, and it tends to involve around what we call the power of dissociation. So seeing yourself doing something, seeing yourself performing in a certain situation and watching that person do it. And then as you do that, it has a very interesting effect, is that it's like something starts to click and people start to realize, well, actually I can do it because I just did it there. So it has a very interesting effect. And it's kind of, a lot of people do it without even realizing as well. People hypnotize themselves without even realizing. Athletes, you know, for example, will often imagine themselves, you know, scoring or putting the basketball through the net. They'll imagine themselves doing that before a match. They'll go into it. They'll go into a competition, believing that they're going to win, believing that they're their best, and that, in a way, is also a form of hypnosis. But here we're just really kind of doing it formally and adding, you know, a bit of process to it and to enrich it. I sometimes say that one of my trainers said that hypnosis is really an amplifier of human experience. So you can do all this stuff without hypnosis. You know, you can. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes some people don't want to be hypnotized. They can still get the change. But hypnosis is kind of like a little thing, just helps the journey along. It helps allow the critical mind to kind of take a back seat, and so you can really focus on what you want.
Would you say that it can like actually consciously change the type of person that you are with repetitive effort of like daily hypnosis, or would you say that it's more a short-term solution? For instance, if you're lacking confidence and then you do it and then you feel good.
I would say it's definitely a more of a long-term solution, because if you change the I, and we could spend hours talking about who is I, but you change the I, then you change a lot. You change that identity, then, you know, obviously you can't become a man and then a woman. It's not that powerful. But for things like that, for for the dialogue of you saying, I'm shy, for example, well, who is that I? Does it really exist? Or is that just a concept that you are repeating to yourself all the time? And if so, what could be put in its place? What would be something more suitable? So yes, it can change. It can change your belief about yourself. As for your actual personality, that remains to be seen. You know, some people are who they are for all kinds of different reasons. There's a lot more in it than just people. You know, there's the upbringing, there's social factors, there's job status. All these things kind of determine, you know, how you live your life. You know, but you start making a change somewhere, and you never know how it's going to, you know, impact on other things too.
Exactly. Because I personally just want to add, because we're medical students, there's I think I talked to Emma about this previously, but Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's a doctor that really he's helped people with stage 4 cancer and like terminal cancer, and they've actually believed like certain cells regenerating and returning back to normal, or there's actual research in like growing, like athletes growing their muscle mass through actually like visualizing. And you know, so I think as doctors we can definitely use a lot of these techniques. And for me, that I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and like you don't need antidepressants sometimes, and that might be, you know, a big shift, or you might need it for if it's, I guess if it's crucial, then for certain hormonal balances, but other cases you can definitely, I would say, heal anxiety. And I've done it through hypnosis myself, so I think that would be interesting for my patients to know that there are other ways, and you don't always have to refer to like the standard technique, you know. And also, like Emma said, but like for the children with cancer, like I think it's also important for us to highlight the importance of like actually going internally and saying, okay, so these are the issues, and there are other techniques. I don't always have to follow the traditional route of like medication or, you know, a diagnosis. You have ADHD, you have like, let's stop labeling ourselves sometimes, I think is important. And like actually understand what are the areas you want to work on, and stop feeding into that story of like you said, I'm shy, I'm anxious, I'm this, because you're internally, you're not favoring your future self, you know. And changing, like for anyone listening, changing that internal dialogue might be hard after 20 plus years, but everyone can do it. And if you actually set some time for yourself daily, whether that's hypnosis, whether that's meditation, and kind of like see what you're telling yourself, you know, because you're programming, you know, subconsciously, whether you like it or not. So it's really interesting what you're saying. And I don't know. I'm going to recommend my future patients to like hypnosis and
there's an interesting, you mentioned antidepressants, and there's an interesting bit of research which came out, you know, a number of years ago, about 8 or 9 years ago, and they did an interesting study, and they showed that the antidepressants, they do have an effect, of course, but they found that a placebo had almost the same effect. And it was only in very severe cases that it had the antidepressants had the advantage. And there's, as I say, you know, people are kind of programmed to respond in a medicalized way to any kind of symptoms they have. They say, oh, well, there must be something inherently wrong with me. You know, there must be, I have this is not normal. And there's you know, I think we have to be very careful about this sort of increasing medicalization of sometimes normal human experience. Sometimes, you know, people go through adversity. That's part of life. You know, it's normal to feel some stress. It's normal to feel a bit of anxiety. But it can be very easy to cross over the line to say, oh no, I have an anxiety disorder. And all of a sudden you start associating yourself with that, or you see the wrong person. They say, oh yes, well, you've got you've got some anxiety disorder, you better take some medication. And people will accept that because it's what they're used to. It's what they are conditioned to respond to. So yeah, I think there's some caution. I mean, hypnosis is not a magical wonder cure for everything, you know. But it's one which can be very helpful for some people, and just the techniques themselves can really make a big difference, I think.
For sure, definitely.
And I think at this point, it would be quite crucial to ask, you know, I think a lot of people that have maybe not experienced hypnosis themselves might question, let's say, the safety of it. Can you quickly elaborate on, is it a safe technique to use? Do people need to be worried or be worried about it in general?
Okay. So that's a really good question. And it's one of the first questions that all people have in their mind. Is it safe? Because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. People think it's about mind control, or they're going to be put under, you know, as if they're going under an anesthetic and they're not going to be aware of anything. And all that is really based on myth and fiction. In reality, people are very much aware of what's going on. They're very much part of the process. It's actually quite an active and engaged process. You are involved in your experience. You have to take an active role in your hypnosis, if you like. In terms of safety, there are a couple of like contraindications where you probably want to talk to your doctor first. So you know, if you have personality disorders, if you have schizophrenia, epilepsy, certain heart conditions, you probably wouldn't want to volunteer for a stage show, for example. There are certain things where you'd want to proceed with caution. So, and like with any tool, you know, it can be used and misused. You know, it's like any you can say a film could be dangerous, or a video game could be dangerous. It's how it's really how it's used. And so it's also important to make sure that the person you're going to see is someone that you trust and you can
trust,
yes, that sort of is on your wavelength, understands and gets it, and that's perhaps been recommended to you, or you've read some reviews and you kind of get a feel for who they are. So that's quite important. So any like, just like if you take a hammer, you can do some great DIY. You can put some pictures up. You can fix things. You can put things together. You can also do a lot of damage. You can make holes in walls.
Yes.
Facts. But it is a very, generally speaking, though, it's a pretty gentle process.
It is. Yes.
It's a pretty gentle. But strong emotions do come up. And so you want to go with somebody who who has the experience and has the expertise to be able to deal with those kinds of things as well.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. So I would say, like, you need to trust the hypnotist just as well as you need to trust your doctor. And in that regards of safety, I wanna actually quote my friend Oliver here. Once said to me, I think it was the first time that I experienced hypnosis, is you said to me, you're very much still in control of what's happening and whether you want to allow whatever is going on. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're still. There can be a sense of, it depends on the context as well, right? Context is key. So if, for example, you're at a stage show, then the context is slightly different. Because during that show, the hypnotist, through performance and through persuasion and through little tricks, has kind of convinced the audience that there's some kind of thing, something powerful is going to happen. And already by people volunteering to go and watch that show, they've already bought into that frame. They've already bought into that context of, or they're going to make them do something they don't want, or they don't want to do. It's not they don't want to do, but they perhaps wouldn't do it normally. So that that's still a possibility in a stage show, but in a clinical practice, it's very different. You're there because you generally, because you really want to be there, and because the change that you want to make is for you, and so you're going to be in control of that experience. You're going to start running around like a dog simply because you're with a hypnotist. No, the context is what's key here, because I can't, it'd be lying to say that people go onto a stage and they end up doing things which they probably wouldn't do normally. But it's not necessary to say that they're things that they don't want to do, but they're up on a stage for starters, and it takes some courage to get up on a stage in front of thousands of people.
Yes,
so that's already playing in their favor. Plus, there's also social compliance going on. There's all kinds of factors. So it is a big difference. But the experience they have, is fundamentally similar. They're going to feel very focused. Going to be using their imagination. You're going to be imagining a different reality to the point where it actually affects their actual experience. And also what happens on stage. It's just for a short period of time. What happens in an office, in a clinical setting is much different. There's follow up and there's feedback, and and to be honest, the hypnosis is just a small part of that. It's not that. My sessions they tend to be about 60 to 90 minutes, but then people are not in hypnosis for that amount of time. There's a lot of preparation to build up to that. As I always say, the conscious mind is a bit like a leader. It's got to lead first, because you can do all the kinds of therapy, all the kinds of techniques you want. You can try out hundreds of different kinds of modalities to change, but if you're just sort of sitting back and hoping something's going to happen, something's going to kind of, something magical is going to happen, they're going to do some magical dust and something's going to happen, it's not going to happen. No. And you really have to take that first step and say, this is what I want. And you've got to move to, you've got to take that first step towards it, and your unconscious mind will follow.
Yes. Crucial thing is that you want it here and that you indulge yourself and involve yourself in it. Definitely, yes.
I feel like, you have to be perceptive to even be open to doing it. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people are scared.
Right.
Or would think, oh, this is kind of weird. Let's not do that. Because it's just in society, I feel like if you talk about that, it can quickly, like, there are a lot of mindful people, but they're all like, what is that? Even meditation are just not open towards it. But I think what I would like to see, because I'm all about kind of prevention, is like schools starting doing like meditation practice, hypnosis practice. That's something you learn as a child. Not that it's not going to cure everything, but it gives you those tools to deal with it, to kind of deal with those emotions and sort it out, that maybe you don't have that sentence in your head like, I'm so shy because the kids in school, they didn't talk to me, but maybe other kids talk to you, but you only focus on this, to kind of like filter it out. So my question would be, would you think that society is becoming more perceptive or like receptive to practices like this, or are we still far away?
I think things are changing with the interest in mental health at the moment. It is changing. And you only have to look at some of the big apps out there like Headspace and Calm, which are now multi-billion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
There is changing. And, mindfulness and meditation, a little while, you go back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was still very much considered some kind of woo-woo Eastern stuff that you had to sort of dress in special clothes, sit on the floor, with weird music, with kind of interesting people. There's nothing wrong with that, but it was kind of it felt perhaps a little bit too niche, a bit too far away, a bit too new age for people. And hypnosis perhaps has a little bit more of a journey to make because of the social constructs that are out there. But I think it's changing, and that's part of our job, is also to help people understand what it is to be there and to sort of say, hey, this isn't, let me show you what's really going on. Would you really like to know how you can actually make your own arm float? Would you like to know how you can numb pain? Would you like to know how you can change a habit, or develop more self-efficacy and to better manage your emotions? These are very easy and powerful techniques that people can develop. And I think schools is it's one area which it'd be great, if that could be taught in schools for people. It's a good tool. It's a tool. It's like meditation, like mindfulness, and there are some crossovers. It's a tool which is a resource which you can have. You've got it in your pocket, and you just bring it out, like Lucas has been saying. Just brings it out whenever he wants to use it. It's there.
And that's so powerful. And it was really interesting because I told my mom today, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get hypnotized, and she was like, yeah, did you know your grandpa is like was a certified hypnotist? And I was like, no.
Right. Okay.
No way.
And he passed away already like 15 years ago, but he grew up in California, so he was super, and a lot of things are kind of different. He had his incense on, but he had high anxiety, and he went to law school, and he got stomach ulcers and had to quit because he was so stressed, and he kind of found like healing through these tools, which is so cool to now find out. Like, he was such a guru for me that now I'm sitting here also very interested in that, but he did it 30 years ago.
Fantastic.
That's really cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Love that. I think it's like, I don't know, it is something that people have recently started also doing, but for me, like, because I did it and I did it myself, I never thought we would find, like, I never thought I would, first of all, have this conversation with you, but also like, because for me, it's always been something very like personal, and I don't really talk to people about it. But it's because, like you said, it has a little taboo of like, oh my God, like you're being hypnotized. Like what do you mean? So like shifting that perspective is really important. And for me, it has worked. Like I have done practices where like I've told myself I have photographic memory for exams, and I actually memorize everything. Like it's like in comparison to when I wouldn't hypnotize myself. So I've seen the change. And yeah, it's insane. It's really, really cool. You can change so much.
Yeah, fun stuff.
It is. I might actually become a hypnotherapist one day.
Yes.
No, but
Well, you got a contract now.
Yeah, I got a contract. Oliver. But okay, Oliver, so where are you currently based in?
So I'm currently based in Brussels, Belgium,
Okay.
where I've been for the last nearly 9 years now. So I've been for quite a while. As you can tell from my very British accent, that I am originally from the UK. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice. But is it like, so you've been for how long have you been practicing?
So my hypnosis practice, I started in 2019. I opened up in 2019. Just perfect timing, just before a global pandemic. So a lot of my initial sessions were online, and people would wonder, oh, online, does that really work? Well, here's the thing, again, the change is happening in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Happening in your mind. So you don't need to be in a particular room. And I haven't got any magnet powers or things coming up my hands or eyes. So you don't need to be directly in front of me. And you just need to be able to hear me and to be able to understand what I'm saying. And I need to be able to see you. And it works in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So I initially started with a lot of online sessions. Now I see most of my clients now in person here in Brussels. But I see people from all over the world, from the US to Australia to all over Germany and Belgium. That's really these days. There are a lot of people out there that offer what hypnosis. So it's now increasingly an option out there for people to go and explore, and to if there is something which is a priority for them, they really want to change, then it can be a great option.
Cool.
Yes.
And I can tell from personal experience that there's close to no difference whether you are with Oliver in person and he hypnotizes you, or you are via the video chat. There's close to no difference. Of course, there is a difference of like feeling, environment, and etc. But other than that, like the effect has been, for me at least, more or less the same. So that's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, we did it.
We did it.
We did
it in 3 different countries.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Well, actually,
Oliver,
all of us
4,
are in a different
actually.
country. Yeah,
4. But like also the fact now that I'm so like intrigued of forgetting my name, but like I'm like, I want to know how that feels like. But there's so many cool things you can do.
Yeah.
And especially after the pandemic, people went through some, you know what I mean? Like it was such a shift in consciousness. Everyone started you know, the issues were now internally because we couldn't go out, we couldn't go traveling, we couldn't. So we were faced with ourselves ultimately, and with our emotions and things that we've been distracting ourselves for so long for, you know, and the anxiety came up, especially for, I mean, me and Emma went through 2020 was insane.
It was rough.
It was rough. It was, you know, online schooling. There's so many things. And now it's like, you have to deal with the issues. You have to sit with yourself, and these come up, and hypnosis definitely helps. I feel like I'm being sponsored by like, like, I don't know who I'm being sponsored by, but yeah, and meditation.
You can collect your check later.
Yeah, Oliver's paid me prior to this meeting. But yeah. Okay, but Oliver, so where can we find you on social media? Do you have Instagram?
Yes. So you can find me, first of all, by my website, boosthypnosis.com. On there,
will be linked in the bio.
In the bio,
if anyone is curious to kind of have a first experience, there is a 20-minute deep relaxation audio that they can go and grab for free. And if they're interested in having a little chat, then there's an option just to book a quick call with me, and we'll have a chat together to see what options are there. Otherwise, on Instagram, you can find me at, the name is just boost.hypnosis. Boost.hypnosis, you'll find me on Instagram, and I'm there.
Yes.
Exciting.
I'm gonna give you a follow.
Yes. Thank you very, very much for
20
joining.
minutes, turning them on now.
Yeah. I love that.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming. And
Thank you
being our
very much
first-
for joining us today. It was
Yes.
a blast. I hope it was just as enjoyable and informative for our listeners as it was for us. So
It
thank
really
you very
was.
much. Well, find us of the podcast, The Fact That, on YouTube. Find us on Instagram, The Fact That Official. Find us on Twitter, The Fact That Subscore. Give us a listen to all previous episodes, upcoming episodes. Be stoked for more to come.
That's
and
right.
we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
listening.
Bye.